My name is Vivian Rowan. I am 34 years old, and the last thing I remember before waking up in a VIP hospital room was my mother-in-law pouring me a second helping of tiramisu. I came to under fluorescent lights, an IV in my arm, a heart monitor clicking beside me. The door was half open, and through it I heard Gretchen whisper, "Are you sure she took it?" Then Paige, my sister-in-law, let out a quiet laugh. "Relax. By tomorrow morning, everything will be ours." My blood went cold. I reached for my phone on the chair beside the bed, battery at 34%, opened my messages, and typed one line to my attorney. "Execute the plan now." 48 hours earlier, I had signed a document none of them knew existed, and the woman who helped me draft it was already on her way to the hospital. But I need to go back, because what happened at that dinner table started long before the wine was poured. Drop a comment and subscribe. I grew up in Harnett County, North Carolina. My mother raised me alone in a double-wide on 2 rented acres. She worked nights at a gas station and weekends at a church thrift shop. I never went hungry, but I learned early that nothing came free and nothing stayed unless you held it with both hands. I got a scholarship to nursing school at UNC Wilmington, graduated top of my class, took a job in the ER at a Charlotte hospital, and worked there 4 years while enrolling in the Family Nurse Practitioner program at UNC Charlotte. I got my MSN in 2 years, passed the boards, came out licensed to diagnose, prescribe, and build treatment plans on my own. 12-hour shifts, holidays, overnights. I loved the work. But every week, I watched patients discharged to homes where nobody was waiting. Elderly men sent back to empty apartments, women recovering from hip replacements with no one to check if they were eating. The hospital treated the crisis. Nobody treated the aftermath. So I started Rowan Home Health out of my kitchen table, 1 laptop, 1 filing cabinet, a phone that never stopped ringing. Within 2 years, I had 6 employees. Within 5, 23, covering 6 rural counties. In-home nursing, post-op care, medication management, physical therapy, referrals. I drove to see patients myself every Saturday morning, not because it was required, but because Mrs. Delano in Stanley County had no children, and Mr. Whitfield in Anson County couldn't get his compression stockings on alone. Every contract, every hire, every late-night reconciling payroll, mine. I was proud of it, the way you're proud of something built with nothing but stubbornness and a refusal to quit. I was good at taking care of other people, terrible at noticing when someone was circling me. I met Tyler Prescott at a fundraiser for rural health clinics. He was tall, quiet, had a way of listening that made you feel like the only person in the room. He asked about my work, and when I told him I ran a home health agency, he didn't glaze over the way most men did. He asked how I handled Medicaid reimbursements. That got my attention. We dated 11 months. He was gentle, steady, never once talked over me. That felt like love. When he brought me home to meet his family, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. The Prescott house sat on 3 acres in a gated community outside Mint Hill. Gretchen met me at the door with a hug that smelled like Chanel and fresh bread, and held my face in both hands. "You are exactly what this family needed." The table was set with china that had been in the family for decades. She asked about my business, my mother, my plans, and it felt warm. It felt like belonging. Tyler's younger sister Paige sat across from me, polished, blowout, linen blouse, perfect nails, smiling and asking the right questions while her eyes measured me the way you measure a room you're deciding whether to rent. I noticed. I filed it away. Tyler checked his phone twice during dinner, both times Gretchen, and answered immediately each time. I filed that away too. On the drive home, Tyler said, "Mom already loves you." Looking back, the warmth was research. She was appraising me before I even knew I was for sale. 6 months after the wedding, Gretchen took me to lunch and, folding her hands, suggested folding my business assets into the Prescott Family Trust. For efficiency, for protection. I said no. Rowan Home Health was mine, built before the marriage. Her smile held, but didn't reach her cheekbones. "Of course, dear, just something to think about." That night, Tyler said, "Mom was just trying to help. Don't make it weird." That was the first time I felt the invisible cord between him and Gretchen tighten whenever I pushed back on money. At a July barbecue, I overheard Paige on the phone in the laundry room. Try building something when your own mother won't stop comparing you to the golden daughter-in-law. It stung, but it told me something bigger. Gretchen had built a system, praising me to Paige and Paige to Tyler, holding the measuring stick, grading all of us for the same reason. Control. The first unauthorized transfer from our joint account was $12,000 for one of Gretchen's property closings. Tyler barely looked at the statement. I set a boundary, no transfers without both of us agreeing, and 2 weeks later, another $5,000 vanished the same way. I opened a personal account at a different bank and rerouted my income. When Tyler noticed 3 weeks later and asked why, I said, "Because I work 60 hours a week for that money, and I should know where it goes." The cord pulled. This time I didn't let go. I threw myself into work. A new regional hospital contract, a second van, 3 new hires, and missed Tyler's birthday dinner. Gretchen answered his phone. Business comes first for some people, soft as a pat on the head. I told myself that if I built something stable enough, the instability at home wouldn't matter. It cannot. I know that now. A certified letter arrived. $340,000 in unpaid property taxes on a Prescott commercial building, 3 years overdue. Tyler cracked the truth open piece by piece. The whole Prescott commercial portfolio was bleeding, total exposure near $900,000, hidden by Gretchen from everyone, including her own children. That evening, Gretchen called, warm as ever. "We are family shares. Just a temporary bridge, 6 months. If we could arrange a transfer from your business accounts." I said no. Clear. Final. "I see," she said. "Well, we will find another way." It was a promise. At a Sunday dinner, Gretchen served her famous mushroom risotto. That midnight, I woke up violently ill, nausea, racing heart, the room tilting. Urgent care called it a GI bug. Nobody else who ate that meal got sick. I wrote it all down and filed it in my desk drawer, the ER nurse in me paying attention to symptoms that didn't match the story. 2 weeks later, fully recovered, Tyler started asking questions he'd never asked in 3 years. How my business bank account worked, whether it was only in my name. Mom said we should understand each other's finances better. That night, I pulled up my LLC operating agreement. Tyler was listed as interim manager if I became incapacitated, boilerplate I'd signed before any of this. My healthcare power of attorney named him too, with a durable financial POA stapled behind it. It read like an open door. I found the proof by accident in Tyler's work bag. A healthcare power of attorney with my name and signature, one I had never seen, never signed, dated 7 months earlier, notarized by someone I didn't recognize. I photographed every page. That night, I lay beside a man whose bag held a document that could give him control over every dollar I'd earned, with my name forged onto it. My friend Nora, a hospital pharmacist, told me over coffee that someone had called the pharmacy asking about my prescription history and any history of psychiatric treatment, using a callback number that didn't match my doctor's office. When I told her everything, the illness, the forged POA, Tyler's questions, she said, "You need a lawyer, not the Prescott family lawyer. Get baseline blood work done now while you're healthy, so if it happens again, there's something to compare against." I hired Rachel Keller, an independent trust and estate attorney with no ties to the Prescotts. She restructured my trust immediately, removing Tyler as beneficiary and successor trustee and installing herself as interim, replaced him as emergency manager on my business succession plan, and pre-filed a forgery challenge against the POA with the county clerk. Then she proposed a dead man's switch. I'd check in with her regularly, and if I missed a check-in, she'd automatically execute a prepared package, restraining order, police report, asset freeze, emergency divorce filing. I signed everything. I didn't feel powerful. I felt prepared. Soon after, Tyler left his laptop open, and I saw an email from Gretchen to a lawyer named Harold Brewer. Subject line, Emergency Conservatorship Timeline. It laid out a plan. After I was hospitalized, Tyler would present the healthcare POA to admissions. They'd file for emergency temporary conservatorship, citing incapacitation, with a judge's clerk confirming availability. Once granted, redirect all my accounts into the Prescott Trust within 48 hours and secure signature authority over my LLC. I screenshotted it and sent it to Rachel, then closed the laptop and said nothing. For 5 weeks I performed. The trust restructure went through, passwords changed, money moved. I brought casseroles to family cookouts and answered Gretchen's Sunday calls the same way I always had. I got baseline blood work, every marker normal, and filed it with Rachel alongside the pre-drafted police report. If my next labs show something not on this panel, I told her, then someone put it there. The anniversary dinner invitation came from Gretchen. Saturday, just the 4 of us, something special planned. I told Rachel. Understood. Stand by from 6 p.m. Dead man switch active. If you don't text me by 11, I execute. I told Nora to be ready to call for a full toxicology panel if I ended up at the hospital, framing it as a pharmacist's professional concern that would trigger a clinical obligation. You could just not go, she said. If I don't go, they try again, I told her. I need a substance in my blood that wasn't there 2 weeks ago. That's the difference between a paperwork crime and a felony. Saturday night. Candles, Gretchen's best china, wine breathing on the sideboard. I brought my own sealed water bottle. Gretchen's face flickered when I declined the wine. Dinner was warm and staged like a play where someone was about to get hurt. Then the tiramisu, my favorite, remembered from a comment I'd made 2 years earlier, and underneath the espresso and cocoa, a bitterness that didn't belong, medicinal and flat. Gretchen watched me eat it the way you watch a clock, not a guest. I ate half, enough for a lab to quantify, and smiled. This is wonderful. 20 minutes later, the nausea hit hard. I texted Rachel from the bathroom, symptoms starting, maybe 30 minutes before I lost function, then walked back out and said I needed the hospital. Not a private doctor, Novant Presbyterian's ER. Gretchen's hand, reaching for the phone, went still for just a beat. Of course. Tyler, drive her. At the ERI was triaged fast, vomiting, tachycardia, confusion, and Gretchen arrived within 15 minutes already taking charge, securing a private VIP room, signing consent forms Tyler passed her unread. I drifted in and out. My phone sat 3 feet away in my purse. Might as well have been 3 miles. I woke at 2:07 a.m. to voices in the hallway. Gretchen, tight and urgent. Are you sure she took it? Paige, almost amused. Relax, Mom. She ate half the plate. By tomorrow morning, everything will be ours. Gretchen. Tyler needs to present the paperwork first thing before she wakes up properly. The POA gives him authority to speak to the bank, the business, everything. Paige. It's in his bag. Gretchen. Judge Harwell's clerk is expecting the filing Monday. 2 business days and we control the trust, the LLC, the accounts. She'll be too sedated to challenge it. I lay still, breathing slow, and reached for my phone. 2:14 a.m., battery 34%. Execute the plan now. Rachel's reply came in 90 seconds. On my way. Do not say anything to anyone. I called Nora at 2:20, told her exactly where I was and to get a stat toxicology panel ordered on professional suspicion of non-prescribed substance ingestion. Then I photographed my admission chart, no toxicology screen ordered, no suspicion of poisoning noted, Tyler listed as healthcare decision-maker per the POA, presented at admission, and sent it to Rachel, who confirmed the pre-filed challenge was already in the county system and the document couldn't be honored. Rachel arrived at 7:45 a.m. with 2 file folders and no jewelry. At 8:10, Gretchen swept in with peonies, followed by Paige and a hollow-eyed Tyler. Gretchen's concern froze the instant she saw the woman in the gray blazer in my visitor's chair. Who is this? My attorney, Rachel Keller. Rachel laid it out precisely, the way I'd heard surgeons speak, unhurried, every word calibrated. At approximately midnight, a healthcare power of attorney bearing my purported signature, dated months earlier, had been presented to admissions, naming Tyler as my healthcare agent, with broad financial authority in the event of incapacitation. Ms. Rowan did not sign this document, Rachel said. Her authentic signature is on file with the Secretary of State from her LLC registration, as well as with multiple insurance carriers and licensing boards. A formal forgery challenge was pre-filed with the county clerk's office 6 weeks before this admission. The document is already contested in the court system. Additionally, a police report for forgery, fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial exploitation was filed at 6:38 this morning. Tyler made a sound, not a word, just air leaving his body. An emergency temporary restraining order was granted by Judge Patricia Weaver as of 7:52 this morning, Rachel continued, checking her watch. Under its terms, none of you may contact Ms. Rowan, access her accounts, enter her residence or place of business, or attempt to exercise any authority under the contested POA. That order has been in effect for approximately 20 minutes. Gretchen tried the soft, motherly pivot. The medication, the stress, it does things to your thinking. I've seen it with my own mother. This isn't something we need lawyers for. We're family. Family shares problems too. Until I said, evenly, I have baseline blood work from 2 weeks ago, every marker normal, and a full toxicology panel is running right now on last night's blood. If it shows something that wasn't in my baseline, and Gretchen, we both know it will, this isn't a family matter, it's a criminal one. Gretchen's composure held for 3 more seconds, then her folded hands began to tremble. You do not know what you are saying. I know exactly what I'm saying, I said. I have known for 6 weeks. Paige broke first, standing, shaking. Mom, she has blood work from before. Then, to me, I didn't know what it was. She told me it was something to help you relax, a sedative, so Tyler could handle the paperwork in the morning. I didn't know it would make you this sick. Paige, Gretchen's voice cracked like a branch, but it was too late. Rachel noted that Paige had just confirmed, on the record, knowledge that a substance was administered without consent. Tyler protested he hadn't known anything. Rachel told him his signature on the forged POA made him potentially liable for conspiracy and advised separate counsel. Gretchen drew herself up one last time. After everything this family did for you, after we gave you the Prescott name, this is how you repay us? I looked at her from the hospital bed, IV still in my arm, and said, Family does not poison family. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. 30 years of controlling every room, and she had no answer. Within the hour, police arrived and took my statement. I gave it clean and factual, the way I'd been trained to give patient reports. At 10:15, the attending confirmed a preliminary toxicology flag, an elevated benzodiazepine compound, not prescribed to me, consistent with ingestion 8 to 12 hours earlier. The Prescotts had already left the building. They won't be hard to find, Rachel said. Gretchen was arrested the next afternoon on assault by administering a noxious substance, a felony, plus forgery, conspiracy, and attempted financial exploitation. Bail was set at $150,000. Paige was charged as an accessory, cooperated with the DA, and pleaded down to misdemeanor conspiracy with probation, community service, and restitution. Tyler's charges were reduced to a single count of financial document fraud, no jail time, a felony on his record, in exchange for testifying about 3 years of Gretchen's instructions. The restraining order became permanent. I filed for divorce the same week I was discharged. It was finalized in 4 months. I kept everything, the agency, my accounts, my trust, my home, none of it ever having touched the Prescott name. The Prescott house went to auction 3 months after Gretchen's arrest. The remaining commercial properties were liquidated to cover debts. The family that offered to share everything with me lost everything they had. By tomorrow morning, everything will be ours, Paige had said. She was right about the timeline, wrong about who. 6 months later, I signed a contract with a second regional hospital, 4 new hires, 2 more counties covered. A patient in Union County sent flowers to the office with a note thanking the nurse who made sure he took his medication. I put it in the drawer next to Mrs. Delano's. I'd changed the locks on my townhouse, planted tomatoes in the back garden, adopted a gray shelter cat who sits on my filing cabinet and purrs at the printer. Nora comes by Saturday mornings for coffee, and we talk about everything except hospitals and lawyers. Rachel sent a card when the divorce finalized. It was a privilege to work with someone who trusted the process. I drove to see my mother, who didn't ask about any of it, just rocked in her chair and said, "You always were the quiet one. The quiet ones are always the ones paying attention." I was not the same woman who'd driven to the Prescott house that October Saturday. Not harder, not angrier, just clearer about what I was willing to protect and what I was willing to lose, and the difference between the two. I learned that the people who say we are family the loudest are sometimes the ones you need the strongest boundaries against. That's my story. One forged signature, one dinner I walked into with my eyes open, and one text message that changed everything. If this reminded you to check who holds power of attorney over your health care, or to ask your own attorney about your trust, do it this week. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.